Good evening, everyone. Thanks for coming. We'll begin the meeting as usual with the pledge.
Here's United States and to the Republic.
City Council President Suzanne Souter.
Here.
Councilperson Joseph Day. Councilperson Nerman Zubaka.
Here.
Councilperson Andrew Zelt.
Here.
Councilperson Brian Mattaway.
Here.
Also present, Mayor Valerie Leary, City Treasurer James Wisman, City Administrator Antonina Tantillo, Chief of Police Richard McCabe, and City Solicitor Max Walton.
Thank you. Have the minutes of the March 11th meeting. Does anyone have any corrections? I have two very minor ones. On the second page, the third bullet point about from the Board of Health. It's the second line at the end. It says Heath instead of Health Board. And then on page 6, again, this third bullet point, it says we met with Representatives Coons, Blunt Rochester, and McBride. I think it should say Senators Coons and Blunt Rochester and Representative McBride. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes as corrected? A second?
Second.
All in favor? Minutes are approved. Mr. Risman, do you have the treasurer's report for us?
Yes, ma'am.
You want to talk into the mic, please?
Make sure it's on.
Pardon me? It's green now, so I can talk. As of March 31st, we're 3/4 of the way through our fiscal year. And we have $12,006,299. And that consists of unrestricted funds of $9,008,269 and restricted funds of $2,998,029. So that, to me, sounds pretty healthy. Now, with that said, we have collected in the operating accounts, the budget, the revenues, $5,037,760, which is approximately 72% of our money that's to be collected. And most of it was in the form of property taxes and property tax transfers and a few other major items. So we're in good shape there. On the expense side, we have, pardon me, I folded it just so I could get to it quickly. All right, on the expense side, let me just get to it. Oh, on our expense side, our total expended money is $4,759,906, which is 68% of our budget. And so the total budget being $7,027,788, we still have $2.2 million of expenses that we budgeted that we have not had paid yet. But we've still got 3 months to pull it together. So in summary, I would say we're in good financial shape this year, year to date. Any questions?
Is there a motion to approve the report as subject to audit? The motion, do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. And the treasurer's report's approved. City administrator?
Thank you. So March was a very busy month for us. Following the March council meeting, President Sauer, Mayor Leary, and myself participated in Hill Day, in which we had the opportunity to meet with our elected officials in DC and advocate for our city. We discussed items such as funding and federal budget cuts. Later in March, we unfortunately had a deceased whale wash up in Bull Hill, which had to be removed and taken to the dump. This was an unusual and unexpected event that unfortunately occurred, but thanks to the help of the Marine Education Research and Rehabilitation Institute, known as MERRE, NOAA, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, DENREC, Delaware Solid Waste Authority, City of Newcastle Police Department, and Public Works, Federal Fire Department, Cirillo Brothers, Delaware Solid Waste Authority, 3D Fabricators Inc., and Woodcraft, we were able to rectify the matter as expeditiously as possible. The work for the Delaware River Trail study is underway. I've met with the planners at Johnson, Merriman, and Thompson, who are doing the study, and we'll have more updates as this progresses. It's just done last month. I recently spoke with Mr. Hermes of Kleinfelder regarding the Delaware Street railroad crossing improvement project, for which we had a presentation a couple months ago. Unfortunately, they are facing some additional delays in the project as Norfolk Southern needs to review their portion of the project, which will not be completed until at the earliest next year. It's because it has gone on for so long, so they need to reevaluate where they are with their timelines. Both DelDOT and Norfolk Southern are committed to ensuring the project is completed in a timely manner. And there are two projects on the DelDOT schedule, which are at the top, our project and the project in Middletown. So they're just going to stop the projects for now, complete the Middletown project, and by the time that's done, they will continue with ours. They're not going to stop the work completely. The signal portion of the project should be completed sometime this year, most likely in the summer. In February, I had advised that we were still waiting for an update from the railroad regarding the clean out of the ditch behind Walgreens. Mr. Hermes said that that the Norfolk Southern representatives are continuing to coordinate and remain committed to completing that. And their timeframe of completion is about the end of May. So let's hope for the best for that. We again will have to discuss the gateway as we get closer to determine how we'd like that to look. As soon as I have additional updates on that project, I will let you know. Regarding the Mount Salem project, they have completed the work and our code official reviewed it and was advised that it has brought the building to compliance. The floating dock was completed as reported at the last meeting. Many of you have noticed that the gate does remain locked towards the middle of the wharf. We are just waiting for the locking gate at the gangway to be installed and completed. So once that is done, the entirety of the work will be completed. So that should be done in the following weeks. The work for the citywide paving contract and the ADA sidewalk contracts are underway by both Cirillo and APS. If you see markings again on your street, maybe because of this, residents are encouraged to contact our office if you have any questions about that. The work for the 3 UD student projects continue to be underway. The Biden School undergraduate students are continuing to work on their evaluation of revenues in the city, and the results of this project will be shared at a future budget meeting. We have the MPA student who is working on an HR project with me to evaluate job descriptions, and the UD Communications undergraduate students who are working on the website project. So you may see a little bit of color scheme changes or updates to the website over the next couple months, and they're working on that. And as soon as it's completed, I will let you know. The dog park, as discussed at the last meeting, the survey and wetlands evaluation has been completed. Councilman Zelt and I met, and we're working to put together the specs to determine the needs for the fencing and other amenities of the park. A reminder that the citywide election will take place this Saturday here at the Senior Center, and absentee voting applications and affidavits are still available at the city office. Unfortunately, we just received word that FEMA has canceled the BRIC funding, which was the Building Resilient Infrastructure and Communities Grant opportunity. It was discussed at the last meeting that we were working on this grant application to evaluate the studies already conducted to evaluate the feasibility of raising the Army Creek, the Ambassador Marsh, Broad, and Buttonwood dikes to an elevation at or above the 100-year floodplain elevation, and determine which levels we should raise them to, and the feasibility of potentially extending the Dennings. At the last meeting, AECom did provide us a rough cost analysis for which we, council voted, to approve a 25% match should the need be. We're going to continue to seek funding opportunities and work with, both DEMA and the UDGAP, group to look for other ways we can fulfill this project. Additional grant updates. I have recently applied for a Homeland Security grant, so I'm just awaiting a response on that, and am continuing to apply for additional cybersecurity and Homeland Security grants, as well as park grants. Unfortunately, we were notified that the top grant for which I applied for back in January was not approved this time around. The project that was sought was to continue the work of the existing feasibility study that we just began. The representatives from Delta were really excited about the project and thought it was a great idea. They just wanted to see the results of the current feasibility study to determine the next steps. And they highly encouraged us to explore this grant opportunity next year. So of course, we'll be applying for that again. And then by the end of the month, we'll also be applying for Bonneville funding. And then lastly, Separation Day planning continues for this year. We continue to seek vendors and parade participants. So if you or anyone you know would like to participate, I highly encourage that. You can visit the city website or contact my office to sign up, and we'll walk you through that process. Thank you. Are there any questions?
I have one question on the whale.
Yeah.
People are asking, who's paying for that?
Good question. So apparently when a whale comes onto the shore of whatever property, municipality, federal, state, local, and individual's private property, it's the responsibility of the property owner. So unfortunately, that would be a large cost to us, but we did work with the partners, and we were able to get those expenses covered by both the state and the federal agency. So we did not have any cost to us, thankfully.
Very nice, thank you.
No problem.
I have a question.
Mhm.
Sorry about that. In regards to the railroad, infrastructure improvement,
Yes,
you said, next year, right?
Yes.
So by the end of next year, that means December 31st, is that the
of
new deadline?
2026.
2026?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. Their, quick goal is to have it done by next spring, but the worst case scenario would be over the summer.
Okay. Thank you.
But they, like I said, they're still gonna work on the second phase and continue working towards this third phase, so it's not like it's gonna come to a complete standstill.
Could you just remind me for the 25% match you voted in the last time, how much was the total of,
The total for the project was 235,000, and the 25% match was 58,750.
thank you.
Anyone else? Thank you.
Thank you.
Chief McKay?
Good evening, and I for one would not be upset if we waited and pushed that railroad project back to when I retired, so. I just have a few things, if there's no questions on the report, did a couple incidents we'll talk about last month. At one point, we had closed Route 9 from Washington Street to Grantham Lane for the recovery of some, what was later determined to be World War I ordnance. So our speculation is that there was somebody magnet fishing. It's the first time I've heard of that phrase. We think they maybe pulled it out of the creek, looked at it, maybe panicked and left. So we really don't know where, who that was or how it got out, but that's our speculation. We're fortunate enough to have the county explosive and ordnance team come out and look at it. They determined that it looked like military grade ordnance, so they called the Air Force UD out, and then they took custody of it. So doing the road closed for a little while. I know we got a lot of questions about that. we've started to implement directed patrol again in areas where we're getting, pretty steady complaints about traffic violations. And we are able to confirm that we have a speed problem again on Route 9 near Dobbinsville, so we're heavy, enforcement in that area. We hope to see, an uptick in citations and then maybe slow this down again. Same issue on Wilmington Road. We're starting to see speed again on Wilmington Road, just north of the PD, south of Moore's Lane, that area there. It's a great strip that gets a lot of attention. And then we're having shoulder violations again on Delaware Street by the school. So part of the project in Delaware Street with the railroad, they talk about revamping that side of the road. We really want to revisit the idea of putting those delineators on the shoulder, so it discourages people from hitting the shoulder just around the Carry Downey, for Carry Down and taking it to 141. So, but in the meantime, we'll be set up there, and fortunately, we get a lot of citations that way. And then the last thing I wanted to talk about was every now and then we think it's a good idea to remind folks that, and I know a lot of you at some point have reached out to say that constituents call with issues that are in progress. We really want to bounce those folks back to 911 and a non-emergency number. So it's okay to tell them that. We talk about this every now and then to say it does a few things, right? It helps track the data. So if I get a call saying there's a problem and then I call an officer, there's no record of this until the officer keys up his mic. And then that the information that's tracked is basically whatever the officer is saying. So for that our constituents, when they have an issue, they call 911, they go through the protocol process, they build up that database, and then they get the response that they need. So I just wanted to, touch base on that. The other issue is when we get calls about, I was just talking to a councilman tonight about calls about complaints about drug activity and stuff like that. The more information we can get, the better it is for us, but we will always follow up on it. Especially if we have a place to look, an idea of who may be involved, and then we take a look at it. We don't necessarily always talk about it, because in some cases, we may not want to be seen there just yet. But we still look into it, so, and that's all I have.
Thank you, Chief. Any questions from council? Thank you. Council Communications, Baca, would you like to speak tonight?
Yeah, I'm gonna make, it brief tonight because a lot of comments, a lot of my communications will be later. Just wanted to, congratulate everybody celebrating Eid, happened early in the month, and, want to wish everybody happy Easter. Hope you guys, attend, or, festivities in town, I hope to see kids around, on our greens. That's all for me.
Thank you. Tonight.
Good afternoon, good evening, everyone, and thank you, Council President. Just want to highlight a few items. One, senior school tax credit relief dollars for residents that are 65 years and older. That deadline is April 30th. There is a reference to that on the city website. The county, I recently found, new information to me. I know I'm 65, but I'm not. The county also has a property tax program that I like to make known to citizens should they be aware, particularly given the reassessment. So it's Newcastle County Office of Finance Assessment Division for elderly exemptions for residents ages 65 years and older. The deadline is June 1st. I'll be providing this to Ms. Santillo as well. Potentially, depending on the case, an exempted amount of $173,000 would be subtracted from the total assessed value of the applicant's property. And that can be significant. So we want to make sure that our residents are aware of that because reassessment has not happened for decades. Last week, Ms. Rose asked that the names and addresses for people who spoke during the public comment section be held for privacy protocols. I agree with her. I don't think that people should have to cite or reference their address. Beach cleanup, April 12th, is sponsored by the fantastic Newcastle Sailing Club. It will take place from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. April 19th, Delaware 250 First State National Historic Park are partnering with the Delaware State Historical Society, Newcastle Historical Society to help with light maintenance and yard work at the Buttonwood School Museum and Mount Salem gravesite. This event will commence at 9 a.m. until about 1 p.m. Volunteers are needed and welcomed. April 24th, the library will host a children's free vision clinic with Vision to Learn from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. Sign up is required, and it can be done by calling area code 302-328-1995. And then I was looking at the agenda, and it seems like there's a Scrivener's error. I just wanted to mention that. Gross rental receipts was first presented months ago. For order and procedure, I respectfully ask that it be discussed before items 6, 7, or 8. Thank you.
Not sure what, I mean, we have that item scheduled as item 7.
But I
I'm
think,
sorry,
I'm sorry, I
item
think,
8. No, wait a minute.
I think it would be considered old business.
Oh.
I guess that's what I'm saying.
Oh, okay. So it should be after public comments, is what you're saying.
No, after, I know we usually do the appointments for the individuals to get them out of the way.
So you're just
Totally
suggesting move it after to position 6 then?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, gotcha. Thank you. Mr. Zell?
Good evening, everyone. First, I want to thank Joe Day for his litter crew. We'll probably end up talking about it. It was a great time, picking up all the wonderful trash out there. Arisafa donated plants, gently used goods that you may have from your home and garden. May 1st is a drop off. So if you can help out with that, that would be great. And then, of course, May market for that is actually May 2nd and 3rd. Election day, everyone has heard, is April 12th, Saturday, and I'm doing a food drive. So as everyone is aware, that the Food Bank of Delaware is hitting some hard times. Good, I think it's like 52% is coming from the federal government that is being slashed. So if you can bring out non-perishable goods on election day when they're coming out, I would greatly appreciate that, and so would they in our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Day?
Okay, just a few things. I did want to report that we did get a revised agreement back from the trustees for the bathrooms. So we are evaluating that at this time, but it is moving forward. As was stated previously, we did have an old Newcastle Litter Crew event in the Frenchtown Road area. And we also received an email from the Newcastle Little League. Their leadership tonight is at Blue Rocks opening day. But they asked for this to be read. So the Newcastle Little League would like to extend a huge thank you to the council and city members who attended our opening day ceremony and threw out first pitches to our catchers. Mayor Valerie Leary, Councilman Brian Mattaway, Joseph Day, and Norman Chewbacca, Police Chief Richard McCabe, Fire Chief David Majewski, Tina Masiello from the trustees of Newcastle Common, and Gary Bergmueller from the Newcastle Lions Club. Our special guests, UD and Baby Blue from the University of Delaware, were a huge hit. We would also like to thank the Old Newcastle Litter Crew for organizing a litter cleanup around the grounds before our big day. Despite the quick morning rain shower, our opening day was a huge success and a great way to start off our Little League season. We are so thankful for the amount of support we have received from the city and community. On April 13th at 11 a.m., we are hosting an Easter egg hunt with a special appearance from the Easter Bunny. This event is free and open to the public. More information can be found on our Facebook page. Our concession stand is open most nights out of the week and features some great dinner and snack foods. Please come out to catch a game and enjoy a hot dog or some mozzarella sticks. Shannon Lewis and Jessica Rosica. Thank you.
What was the date of the Easter egg hunt? I'm sorry, I missed it.
April 13th at 11 a.m.
Thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry, and lastly, I would like to thank the city administrator, city staff, Public Works, and everybody else that was involved in handling the whale issue. I know that doesn't come up very often, it's kind of an unknown situation, but I think they handled it quickly and professionally. Thank you.
Okay, I only have a couple of items also. First, I'm sure I'm not the only one who'll be glad when the lock to the gangway for the floating pier is in place and the full length of the pier is then available to those of us who like to walk out there because it's such a great view of the city from the end. And also I'd like to address an issue that came up at a previous meeting. Pardon me. A resident asked about the conversion of single-family homes into multifamily homes, particularly in the historic area. I looked into it and learned that this is very difficult to do these days in the historic area because most of the homes, first of all, aren't large enough to convert into multifamily units. And secondly, even if they are, the utility requirements and the historic area requirements for the outside appearance regarding the placement of doors and so forth all make it very difficult, if not highly unlikely, that there will be conversions, further conversions. And there haven't been any new ones in quite a few years. The last one that the city official I spoke to could remember was on the end of the Strand, and that particular home already had off-street parking, so it wasn't an issue for the neighbors when it was converted to multifamily. And I also encourage everyone to vote on Saturday. You've been told and heard it's from 8 to 6 here at the senior center. Encourage your neighbors to vote, and if you know someone who might have trouble getting here, offer them a ride. Friday at 4 is the last time to turn in an absentee ballot at the office, but absentee ballots may be turned in at the polling place on election day. And finally, I also wish everyone a happy Easter. Thank you. Mayor Leary.
Good evening, everyone. I just wanted to bring up a couple highlights of the last month. The Little League game, I was so glad that I was able to toss a ball and it actually got caught. Because that was never my forte, but that was a lot of fun out there with the kids, and I appreciate being invited. I also attended on March 25th, a Medal of Honor ceremony at the Union Cemetery in Wilmington. This was for Alexander Hand, who was a quartermaster in the Navy during the Civil War, and it was an honor to be there for that ceremony. I had a question the other day from someone on the street about the icebreaker surveys that were done last fall. To my knowledge, I've been told that it is complete and I am just waiting to receive a copy. And in fact, I emailed them this week to remind them to send me the copy. Something from Delaware 250. April 18th and 19th is Two Lights for Tomorrow. It's a nationwide commemoration of the 250th anniversary of Paul Revere's ride. And Two Lights will shine from the state houses across the United States, including Legislative Hall in Dover. And they're encouraging all Delawareans to participate by shining two lights from your windows on April 18th. And also that Saturday, April 19th, is a day of service if you'd like to volunteer. Just last weekend, I had the honor of also presenting, although this representing somewhat the city, but mostly my DAR chapter, but I think it's worth mentioning, presenting a wreath at the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier in Arlington. It is a silent ceremony. There are no words other than the directions they're giving you. It's powerful and it's solemn, and it recognizes all of those who have given for us, as well as those whose names are unknown. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Have someone here from Brazil tonight? Those, yeah. Okay. All right, then it's time for public comments. I'll remind everyone to sign in, and in keeping with what Mr. Mataway said in his Rose's comments last week, we do ask that you put your full address on the sign-in sheet, but that's just maintained in the office. When you state your name, you do not need to state your full address. We would like you to at least state your neighborhood or the street you live on, but you don't have to give the full specific address. And as usual, each person gets 3 minutes and the timer is,
Before I start, I'll just refer to our city code. In the interest to maintain proper records, anyone wishing to speak must sign in on the sign-in sheet. So that's what I will be doing. Thank you. Serious issues coming up with our upcoming election. I put in a fair number of FOIA requests, and I've come up to with the conclusion that the incumbents running for city council have not earned any right to be reelected. Evaluating every little thing that's been going on over the last few years, any projects have turned into an over budget disaster, coming to about $100,000 in total. And that includes the audiovisual system that originally was a lower amount. Then we found out that an AV system does not include audio, so there was more money with that. The stage over budget by about 50,000 and is not the size that our city needs for concerts. It's smaller than the last one. And I've got the specs and the drawings, so it's been irresponsible and careless, reckless spending. Our budget should have been trimmed, not made to equal the budget. It should have been reduced so that we would not be falling into the financial disaster that we're headed to. It's like being on the Titanic and seeing the iceberg years in advance and not doing anything. Something as simple as asking for a picnic bench. Our president wrote every month, I think I'll follow up on it. A year and a half to get some picnic benches. Finally, the trustees, I think, are gonna put the bill because nothing was done. Andrew Zell with a dog park. It was presented years ago for 15 grand. Now it's up to 85,000. They've already spent 10,000. They want to put it in an out-of-way place. Should be in Battery Park where families, children, and the public can enjoy the playground, the water, and the park. And maybe even have a picnic dinner while their dog's there and not all the way across town. I just find it incredible. There's no way that they should be voted back in. But I do encourage everyone to go out and vote. That's our responsibility. It comes down to, I firmly believe that Tara Hayward, who's coming up for vote, should be put in.
Anyway, I'm Leslie Bish, and, I just had a quick, actually, three questions for Mr. Day, because, a year ago, on the 9th of April, 2024, I had, this is just a précis that was in the minutes.
Excuse me, Ms. Fisk, I think if other people can hear you better if you speak it all right.
Can you hear me now? Sorry. I have a précis of a comment that I made, a year ago on the April 9th meeting, 2024. And it started by saying, Ms. Fisk stated that she requested the Department of Justice to investigate the trustees, and it went on, about that. And, I will say that the trustees, are very much a part. I realize that we're supposed only to talk about things with relevance to the city. The trustees are very relevant to the city. When I was on the trustees, we gave $2 million to the city to work on roads. So, I think it is definitely something that is germane to the city. But what surprised me, at that time was that Mr. Day, who was on the council, tried to prevent me from talking, and our city solicitor, Mr. Walton, stopped him. And I would like to ask Mr. Day why he tried to stop me.
I don't even remember the context of what you were saying a year ago.
Well, the context when it was just as I started, I started to say that I requested the Department of Justice to investigate the trustees, and said that they had refused to let the public see the revised conflict of interest. And as I say, you did try to stop my talking about it, and I thought that was inappropriate. Obviously, our city solicitor thought so too. So I wanted to reiterate the fact that anything to do with the trustees very much is a part of the City of Newcastle, and thank you.
Evening, everybody, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Soma Pagmalingam. I'm here because I love this city after being in the state of Indiana for about 6 years, taking care of our grandchildren, of our oldest son, 3 of them. They are all teenagers now, so we came back because we love the city of Newcastle, the historic city. And what I am here to tell you all is life is all about decision making. I just heard from the gentleman earlier that the budget was not done properly and there is a 50,000, I don't know exact amount, I heard from whatever he said. Decision making of a great city which has been also very much we have the trustees created by the forefathers of this great city so that the city will be taken care of adequately whenever there is a shortage. And it has happened. And just now, I also heard $200,000 were given to make sure that the roads are connected right. What I am requesting, whoever who is running for this election is, I am a senior citizen. I have been part of life in this great city since July of 1980. That's a long time. And I am on fixed income. I don't think we deserve any consideration for any form of tax raise at all. I think there is no need, because I know the trustees, I had been a member of this council 20 years ago, and the trustees always are there to help us out. With that said, my humble request for anybody who is here to vote on Saturday, make sure the candidates consider the fact our city is full of senior citizens, and we don't need any form of consideration for any form of tax rate. Finally, I have to again mention this, the flood on 6th Street and Chestnut Street has to be addressed fairly urgently, and it should be corrected before those businesses out there don't have to do their business because of the floods. Also, I think I was about to say something at my last meeting, the Frenchtown Road and the entrance to the farmers market, there is too much of a damage where old people like me can even run the car and get the alignment and even the tire busted. And somebody should address it by calling the state, the county, as well as possibly an access for the farmers market. It's the trustees issue too. It's got to be repaired ASAP. Thank you very much. God bless America. God bless the vessel. God bless the senior citizens of this great city. Thank you all. Good luck to all these candidates who are running on Saturday, next month. Thank you.
How do I follow Dr. Pat? Give it up. Welcome, Doc. Thank you. That doesn't start my time, Andrew. It's late. Regretfully, the weekly, you can start it now. Regretfully, the weekly doesn't tape this, and this never makes the internet, so sad, but compliments, everyone, seriously. Rick, keep us safe. Thank you. We have a great police force. I don't think that they get the recognition that they deserve. Antonina, the projects that are in the works and under works, you've got them online. Thank you very much. I think that we're all grateful for that. If you haven't checked it out, the tidal wave of apartments coming our way, they're there. They're online. Now, compliments to our council. It means a lot to put your name on a ballot. It really does. You're going to take scorn. You'll take criticism from people that don't know you. People that have had very little interaction with you feel like they've got the right to criticize your every move. So thank you. Thank you so much for your service. I am grateful. Even if I disagree with you about a dog park costing 85 grand. Thank you. Now, Joe, I think you're gonna win. Compliments. But I invite you, thank you for taking the time to have a coffee with me. I mean, but I invite you in your second term, have that conversation with Anthony Midori or Marion. But do some neighborhood building, please. I'm inviting all of you. What's past is prologue. If you just sit around and allow the developers to come to town and squeeze every dollar that they can out of every project, guess what? They will. They will put in 1,000 apartments if there's room for 999. So I'm telling you, big piece of land that's right behind this building, why not extend 4th Street, 5th Street, and 6th Street and build townhomes and continue the neighborhood? And somebody could talk to Eric Meyer and say, hey, Mr. Meyer, do you need another $10 million? Maybe a couple million will get it done. Maybe you could put houses in here and people would come instead of apartments. It's just a thought. I had a conversation with the mayor many years ago about the exterior of these buildings on the apartments. And nothing has been done. They all look different, one from the next. We have no standard. Bricks, good enough. All right, everyone. Good luck on Saturday. Thank you for your time.
Any other comments?
Good evening, Guido Campanelli. With the upcoming election, now is the time to reflect on the incumbents and their specific contributions, asking for your vote tonight. Many taxpayers and citizens have been faced with concerns that seem to have been simply ignored, poorly addressed, as traffic congestion improved in this great city. Has council been proactive in looking at alternative opportunities to increase desperately needed revenue? I commend Brian Mattaway on his positive efforts regarding this topic. Sadly, council has not listened. Had the at-large incumbents respected the history of our city and applied consistent and thoughtful approaches to ensure its long-term success and preservation? Is a $1 million proposed playground project in historic Battery Park actually an inclusive project, when parks in Buttonwood, Dobbinsville, Van Dyke Village, Washington Park, and Bull Hill are simply ignored? Not to mention, historic Newcastle, from a demographics perspective, is effectively a retirement community. Those last week in attendance at the candidate forum were informed council never received authorization from HAC to move forward with the project. If this is true, an immediate investigation should be conducted by an outside agency. Residents and city government must both comply with approval process. What is going on? Have those seeking your vote respected the authority of the Historic Area Commission and the city architect regarding building projects that are arguably out of compliance? I was provided an inspection report from the city architect that clearly shows a recent building project out of compliance. They actually received a certificate of occupancy after the city building official indicated there was only an issue that the builder would have to install 2 additional windows. Residents in the area are disgusted because a similar issue took place on the same street in 2020. One of the incumbents who is asking for your vote today actually works for Newcastle County Inspection and Land Use. With your expertise, don't you see or want to address these issues? Why are some members of council more worried about what construction companies think and not the views of the taxpayers regarding high-density apartments and the potential long-term effect, traffic congestion, public infrastructure issues to this historic city? As you must be aware, this city receives state and federal assistance to ensure its historic preservation. What is going on? I close. This election is much bigger than voting for an incumbent that's your neighbor or your friend. They may be nice people, but were they effective, proactive, and results-driven in their approach in serving you? And have they earned your vote? Please vote your conscience and the long-term preservation
Your
of
time
this
is
great
up,
city.
sir. I'm sorry.
Thank you, sir.
Good evening. My name is Florence Smith. I'm coming up here. I wasn't going to say anything. When the gentleman mentioned about playgrounds,
Ms. Smith, excuse me again, speak into the mic or people won't be able to hear you. And don't forget to sign in.
when he mentioned playgrounds, I live in Penn Valley. We have a playground that has not been anything done to it in at least 20 years. It used to be a daycare where they had services going on back there. Now they don't have it. And it's disgraceful. I would like to ask that we get some consideration getting the park done in Penn Valley. And I heard the other communities that he said, we need help. And then also, I'm on the flood committee. Behind my area, There's nothing been done there. The water comes up when it rains hard. It's just an accident waiting to happen. We need some consideration, and you guys are the ones to give it to us. And it's election time. Let's see what you got.
Thank you.
Council President, may I just add a comment about playgrounds since it's been raised twice?
I guess so. Let's wait and see. Does anyone else have any comments? Okay, then yes, Mr. Zabaka, go ahead. Briefly, if you can.
Yeah,
answer.
just briefly, I wanted to mention, I just heard two constituents talk about playground in other communities, city administrator and Encore already submitted applications for grant funding for satellite playgrounds. So just wanted to mention that, while we're focusing currently at the playground in Battery Park, the task has been to look into sources of funding and improvements in other playgrounds. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so the next item is resolution 2025-30. -20, excuse me. A resolution to appoint Linda Sutsky to the Tree Advisory Commission. Whereas the Newcastle City Council passed ordinance 500 to amend and restate chapter 74 relating to the tree commission and chapter 210 of the code of the city of Newcastle relating to street trees, creating the Tree Advisory Commission. And whereas pursuant to section 74-1 of the code, the Tree Advisory Commission shall consist of 5 members, each serving a 3-year term. 2 members shall be appointed by the mayor of Newcastle and confirmed by city council, and 3 shall be appointed by the city council. And whereas members shall be selected on the basis of education, experience, or demonstrated interest in related fields, members need not be city residents. And whereas there is currently 1 vacated position on the Tree Advisory Commission, now therefore be it resolved that the city council hereby confirms the appointment of the following person to the Tree Advisory Commission with that term ending April 8th, 2028. Linda Sutsky, April 28th, 2028, council appointment. Ms. Sutsky has provided some information about her background to the council, and she's here tonight. I don't know, did you have anything you wanted to say, or just?
I'm just honored to be considered for the position. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Sutsky. We appreciate your willingness to serve. Are there any questions from council? Is there a motion to approve resolution 2025-20? A second? Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion's approved. Thank you.
Thank you.
And 2025-21. A resolution to appoint Walker Davis to the Tree Advisory Commission, whereas this, this is all the same except for the part naming Mr. Davis and his dates. So, Mr. Walden, is it all right if I don't read it all over again?
That's perfectly fine.
Thank you. So, this resolution appoints Walker Davis, whose term expires tomorrow, actually, and he's willing to be reappointed. Therefore, be it resolved that the city council hereby approves the reappointment of Walker Davis to a term ending April 9th, 2028. Also a council appointment. Mr. Davis is not here tonight. He has been serving for 4 years. Is there a motion to approve this resolution? A second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Thank you. And the next resolution is 2025-22, a resolution to reappoint Tara Hayward Olivas to the Historic Area Commission. Whereas the Newcastle City Council passed ordinance 505 in part to amend and restate chapter 230-49 through 52 of the Code of the City of Newcastle relating to structure, proceedings, and powers and duties of the Historic Area Commission, known as HAC. And whereas the Historic Area Commission shall consist of the following 6 members: an architect licensed in the state of Delaware and having interest in and knowledge in the protection, preservation, and restoration of the historic character of the city, appointed by the city council. The architect shall be a non-voting member who shall serve in an advisory capacity only. 2 city residents having municipal voting privileges and appointed by city council. 2 city residents having municipal voting privileges appointed by the mayor. A planning commission member appointed by the city council. At least 3 voting members shall be residents of and have legal or equitable title to property in the historic district. And whereas Tara Hayward Olivas, pardon me, term expired March 12th, 2025, and she is willing to be reappointed. Now therefore be it resolved that the city council hereby approves and confirms the reappointment of the following person to the Historic Area Commission, Tara Hayward Olivas, term ending March 12th, 2028. Ms. Olivas is here tonight. I don't know if you have anything you wanted to say. All right, thank you for your past service and your willingness to serve again. Is there a motion to approve this resolution?
I will approve resolution.
Second.
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
That motion is also unanimously. Okay, 2025-23. It's a motion to reappoint Steve Zora to the Board of Adjustment. Whereas the City Council adopted Ordinance 534 at its March 8th, 2022 council meeting. And whereas the Board of Adjustment is a 5-member board composed of the mayor as the chairperson and 4 individuals who have been residents of the city of Newcastle for at least 1 year, appointed by the City Council. And whereas there is currently 1 term ending on the Board of Adjustment, with that term ending on April 12th, 2025. Now therefore be it resolved that the City Council hereby approves the reappointment of Steve Zora to the Board of Adjustment with a term ending April 12th, 2028. I don't believe Mr. Zora is here tonight. He has been a member of the Board of Adjustment. Is there a motion to approve this resolution?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And the next one is the same thing as before. It's another reappointment to the Board of Adjustment, so I'm not going to read all the preliminaries. This is resolution 2025-24. And to reappoint Robert Irwin to the Board of Adjustment. This term also ends April 12th, 2028. Mr. Irwin is not here this evening either, but he too has been serving on the board. So is there a motion to approve this resolution? A second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Okay, I think that gets us through the appointments, and now in accordance with Mr. Mattaway's request, we will advance item 7 on the agenda to discuss and possibly vote on resolution 2025-12. This is a resolution requesting amendment to the municipal charter to authorize the city of Newcastle to levy and collect a gross rental tax. Mr. Mattaway, this was your resolution, so I'll ask you to introduce it.
Thank you, Council President. This was first introduced in January of 2025. The city of Newcastle is the franchise, the prize, and the bride. It must be preserved in perpetuity. It is our ancestral mandate that we have inherited. Hard stop. Shakespeare is correct. Heavy is the head that carries the crown. But I won't pass this cup. I'm gonna stand, I'm gonna drink from it because it's Newcastle juice in my Newcastle cup. As I look at my Newcastle watch, it says 24, Newcastle time 24/7. And like David, we will conquer our giants together. We must change because the times have changed. Just like the ferry that left in 1951, it's not coming back. The market has changed. There is a paradigm shift in respect to funding formulas for small municipalities should they wish to survive and thrive. The city needs to be stable and have a fortress balance sheet with savings so that we can put our children and children's children in a better place. We cannot rely on dying dinosaurs like cable franchise fees, or ones that ride up and down like roller coasters, or we will be rocked like Mitch Williams and that damn Joe Carter is still running around the bases. This is the city of Newcastle, and we must know our rich history and walk in its glory. We are the head and not the tail. We are on top and not beneath. We are leaders and not followers. We must assume our position as the cradle of democracy, not only for the state, but for the country. As the slogan says, first to the party. You cannot tell the story of America 250 without Newcastle, Delaware. These are not times to play tricky dicky, or as the young folks say, fudge around and you will find out. Now the protocol has been established, this additional tool in our toolbox is up to 5 cents on the dollar. Has been on the agenda since January 2025. The reason and rationale has been exhausted. Please note the record. This is enabling language that allows the city to turn on the faucet with a range that can go up and down. Some cities have done it for decades. If approved today, Newcastle can petition Dover. If allowed to pass go, it will come back to council for enactment when it deems appropriate, with exemptions should it desire. Foregoing an opportunity with an ever-changing world and uncertainty means that the chance to petition will be deferred until 2026 and potential enactment until 2027 or later. If you have a chance to secure your future, don't you jump without haste? Where are my people who like blue chip stocks with dividends to fund the people's business programs to ensure that this jurisdiction is of choice to live, work, and visit? Within the council packets, and possibly up on the screen, Ms. Tantillo, you could go to the US Census data sheet. And what that shows accurately, as of the most recent consensus, is that the median rent for Newcastle, city of Newcastle, is $1,675. I just wanted to point that out. I think when I initially presented this, I think some of the numbers initially were shocking to me and obviously to others because they were amazed at what we have in our portfolio. Next on the list is a redacted list of itemized units, which is proof that we have 698 units in our rental inventory currently. Then if we page ahead, after the 698 is affirmed, you then can take the units. I actually used a very conservative figure of $1,200, and at 5%, it is $500,000. And again, the median rent as of the last consensus was $1,600, so you can easily see that this is well in excess of that. Then if you page ahead to the next page, which you have highlighted, are all the city of Newcastle approved housing projects. There's one project for 152 units, 451 units, 396 units, which is in excess over 1,000 approved units. So you can easily see over time, this is looking forward. This is the future. This will be potentially in excess of $1 million of annualized revenue. Wow. We have confirmed the systems that have been used by numerous municipalities is the Edmund system. That is the same system that is used at 222 Delaware Street. They are more than willing to show us how they do it. This packet, previous packets have enumerated process and procedures for how they implement. I'm standing for Newcastle. Are there two? Our current math is not mathing. This is data. This is a data-driven choice. This is Sankofa, an old African proverb, looking back while going forward with a vision. I'll ride this to Dover myself in my car, on my bike, or on foot if necessary, because I love Newcastle that much. What say ye? I yield the floor to my colleagues. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Manaway. Any comments or questions from other members of council?
If I may, I just wanted, I know this was some of the shocking numbers that Councilperson Manaway brought up in a prior meeting. So, I was curious about it during the meeting, but also follow up with additional research myself. So I wanted to, just kind of say that, not only did I confirm these numbers that the Councilperson Manaway has used with the number of units that are currently approved, but, and also conservative method, then I continued, analyzing this, well, how many, 1, 2, 3 bedrooms we have currently, and what are they charging into these apartments, and these numbers easily go to $600,000-700,000 with all these different assumptions being changed. So definitely wanted to thank Councilperson Madawar for looking into this opportunity for our city to address, like revenue that we have not being as diverse as we perhaps wanted to. And this might be one of those things that 10 years from now, we're, talking as one of those solutions that was enacted by this council, hopefully, that, have allowed us to continue to provide great services that the city wants to provide to the residents, and, alleviated some of the, other revenue streams that we have already. So, yeah, that was just, I wanted to, say thank you for bringing this to our attention.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Sabah. Mr. Day, Mr. Zell, do you have any comments?
So we're looking at 5% potentially that could increase. So if someone has a rent of $1,200, it's gonna go up $60. Today's day and age, we're looking potentially going to recession. Try and get more, I think, renters in our area because we have all those apartments. Affordable housing, it just concerns me by increasing this right now. The cost is gonna go back to the people living here. It's not gonna be the cost going back to the people owning these. I know it sounds like it may hit them, but they're just gonna send it off back to the renters, and we're hitting hard times already. It would be nice if we had some more low-cost rentals in town. And by doing this, it's going to increase the situation.
So can I respond? Provide some bit of information. So for 16 years, the city has not raised property taxes on anyone, but I'm sure rents have gone up in 16 years. So us, by doing that, is not automatically going to make something happen or trigger something. Again, this is enabling language. And when we go to Dover, sometimes things sit. For example, last year, the city of Newark went to Dover with 2 requests. One request to charge every university student $50 per semester. The second request was for this, 1%. Imagine 1% of gross rents for all of Newark. Wow. What happened was they sat on it. When I say they sat on it, the legislators, Newark got an extra $1 million in bond bill because they said, we know you need money. You've proven that to us. Here's an extra $1 million. And now this year, the next legislative session, the $50 per student is now advancing. So what I'm saying is that when you go there, it doesn't automatically come back. Additionally, all these other municipalities that have this tool in their toolbox, they also have impact fees. We do not have a holistic impact fee throughout our city. So if you were to follow that logic out, one would assume that impact fees drive up rents. Because as you said, developers aren't just going to eat that. So all these other municipalities have impact fees, which we do not. As a result, our organizations are losing. For example, our library. There are municipalities, because of their impact fees, are able to sow into their libraries hundreds of thousands of dollars in the form of their policy. And our policy is currently not only affecting our budgets, but the budgets of the organizations that we love and hold dear.
Yep, just a couple things. So I am concerned, about this gross rental tax. It does look like we're gonna, at some point within the next year or two, have to raise taxes. With the reassessment, we know that school taxes are gonna go up. So it does concern me. But with that said, I will also agree that this is a slow process. even if it gets through the General Assembly, which I think is a big if, you know, it still has to come back to council. It's still, the council has to come up with rules for it, what it actually applies to, come up with a percentage. So I do think I'm gonna support this resolution, to ask for the ability to do this with the General Assembly. Thank you.
Thank you. I had some of the same concerns that Mr. Zelt had. The taxes passed on to the tenants. The landlords aren't gonna eat this, they're business people. And in effect, it seems to me that it's double taxation for renters. Because when landlords compute their rent, they look at what their expenses are. Their expenses include the property tax that they pay on the buildings and the land that they own, that they're renting out the housing. So now we're gonna add another tax on the renters? That really doesn't seem fair. Why should renters have to pay twice? The other thing that concerns me is a significant source of income to the trustees of the commons is renting property. And much of that property is in the city of Newcastle, such as the farmer's market. And so if we impose this rental tax, that's gonna hurt the trustees. It's gonna reduce their income. I'm sorry?
The trustees do not pay the rent fee. Taxes, they are paid by, Richard Stadt or the people he rents it to and reimburse the trustees.
Oh, but if it reduces, all right, if it's taxes imposed and it reduces the amount of income that the trust gets from the rental, because, well, if Mr. Stack would agree to take on this additional burden, and he's not the only owner of property that is rented by the trustees.
Well, okay,
I'm sorry, this is not, we're not going back and forth.
Market with.
Mr. I'm sorry, the public comments are over. So the other problem is that many commercial leases, such as the ones that the trustees have, are multi-year leases. And so if they just signed a new 3 or 5 year lease last year and reimposed this rental tax this year or even next year, they can't recoup their additional tax burdens from an increased rent for another couple of years. That lowers the income that they have to support the city, support the library, support the fire hall, give scholarships to students, all the various things that the trustees do for residents of Newcastle. So, but the primary reason I'm concerned about this is I don't think it's fair to tax renters twice. And that's what it seems to me that we're doing. The other, if we were to pass this, the other thing is that the example cities that Mr. Mattaway has provided to us that get large amounts of income from a rental tax. I'll read the list: Venus Island, Selbyville, Ocean View, Bethany Beach, Rehoboth Beach, Lewis, and Newark. Now, all but one of those have one thing in common: they're beach resort towns. And the rental market in a beach resort town is vastly different from the rental market in a residential community such as Newcastle. Newark is different in 2 ways. It's a much larger city. It's the 3rd largest city in Delaware, and it has an enormous population of students who rent. And that again is a different rental market than we have here in Newcastle, which are primarily residents. When I looked through the list of rental properties that Mr. Mattaway provided, 600 and some units. Of each of those parcel numbers that he gave us, only 3 of them have more than 10 units. The vast majority of them have 1 unit, which means we're not looking at big corporate landlords. We're looking at individuals who own 1 or 2, perhaps a few more properties that they rent, but we're not talking about big corporations. We're talking about essentially small businesses, people who own and rent out properties. I just don't see that. I agree that we need to explore new sources of revenue, but I don't think we should do that on the backs of our renters, many of whom have lower income and are struggling to pay their rent as it is.
Election time.
So, that was an inappropriate comment, I'm sorry, Sal and everyone that was heard, it was totally inappropriate and out of place. And wrong. I hear what you're saying, but some of the things that you said do not apply to the presentation that I've been making since January. And these packets have been here, and they haven't changed. I'm not talking about commercial. This presentation has been a presentation about residential properties only. If I was talking about commercial rents, I would be talking about millions of dollars day one. And that's not what has been presented ever since January. So that's not the presentation.
So.
And it has not been the presentation. Please, let me finish.
All right, go ahead.
The idea of a pass along, again, I will reiterate, is not necessarily true because because of impact fees. So would you not be in support of impact fees for the city of Newcastle for the fear that they're going to be passed along to renters? Additionally, again, that's a policy thing. Additionally, I'll highlight another example of our policy and how our policy is affecting what we can do and not do. The Downtown Development District. There are potential properties for development that currently don't have anything on them. And in 2018 or thereabouts, we went into the DDD. And we said, if we won't tax you for 5 years after you get a certificate of occupancy. So what's happening is, what will happen is, potentially, someone will build on open land, put hundreds of apartment complexes there, and we will not tax them for 5 years on the additional improvements that they made to that land. And that's problematic. It's our policy. I'll pause there and stop.
Okay.
But I will ask for a vote.
All right, well, I just have one more thing. You say that this is only about residential. The title is gross rents generated from properties within Newcastle. There's nothing there that says it's only about residential. And assuming that you're correct, that that's all it applies to, or we amend the language to make that's all it apply to me, that's even worse because we're putting it all on the backs of the residential renters. In terms of impact fees, no, I would not be opposed to impact fees on new development. That's a one-time fee. This is a fee that applies every year to a landlord. And secondly, of the recently approved projects within the last 5 years or so, none of them has even broken ground at this point. So at this point, I don't see that there's a certainty that all of them or even any of them are actually going to be constructed. So to count on future income from many more developments, when, as you've heard from many residents, they don't want more apartment complexes in the town, it just seems to me to be contradictory. So that's my view, and you can take a vote. And given that this was so contentious, even though it's a resolution rather than an ordinance, I think we should do a roll call vote to be clear. Or is there some, Mr. Manaway has made the motion for a vote. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Ms. Warwick, would you call the roll, please?
Yes. Council President Souter,
No.
Councilperson Day,
Yes.
Councilperson Zubaka,
Yes.
Councilperson Matterway.
Yes.
Did I get everybody?
Me.
Oh, I beg your pardon, Councilperson Zell.
No.
The motion has passed, 3-2. The final item for the agenda then. Here's some more. Right. This is another effort to give us greater flexibility in seeking revenue from different sources. Currently, our code requires that all types of property have the same property tax rate. Residential, commercial, industrial, whatever. Some communities have a variable tax rate so that they can charge a higher rate for industrial or commercial properties. This resolution asks for a charter change to give us that flexibility. It doesn't set any specific rates for different type of properties, but it gives us the flexibility. So I will read resolution 2025-25. A resolution requesting an amendment to the City of Newcastle Municipal Charter addressing different tax rates for types of property within the city. Whereas the Council of the City of Newcastle, City Council, is vested with all the legislative powers of the City of Newcastle. And whereas the City Council is committing to promoting the health, safety, and general welfare of the City of Newcastle in perpetuity. And whereas City Council's ability to meet its obligations to the City of Newcastle under its municipal charter and Delaware law depends on the presence of stable funding sources for municipal purposes. And whereas the Council of the City of Newcastle has been evaluating different mechanisms to raise revenue for municipal purposes. And whereas the City Council finds that the city would benefit from additional clarity regarding the City Council's ability to levy taxes on real property at varying rates based upon property classifications, for example, residential, commercial, and industrial. And whereas the city charter is currently unclear regarding the City Council's ability to set such varying rates. And whereas following the discussion at a duly noticed City Council meeting, the City Council has agreed that the following change to the City of Newcastle Municipal Charter is prudent to clarify City Council's ability to levy taxes on real property at varying rates based upon property classifications, and thus ensure that there remain adequate tools for the City Council to meet its present and future obligations in promoting the health, safety, and general welfare of the City of Newcastle. Now therefore be it resolved by the Council of the City of Newcastle that the Delaware General Assembly is hereby respectfully requested to amend Section 18 budget of the Municipal Charter of the City of Newcastle as amended by striking text as shown by bold strike-throughs as follows. And this is the section of the code. The council shall honor before the first Monday in each July, meet and ascertain as near as may be the amount necessary to cover the net expenses of the government of said city for the current fiscal year, including but not limited to the maintenance of streets, police assessment, collection of taxes, and cost of trash collection, and shall make up a budget containing the items and estimated amounts necessary to cover each and every branch and item of said city government. And immediately after the assessment and valuation shall have been finally settled and adjusted under the provisions of this act, the said council shall proceed to levy a tax on the real property thus valued and assessed. And then the portion that is struck is in just and equal proportions and rates. So then it reads thus valued and assessed sufficient to cover the aggregate of said budget. So is there discussion of this resolution?
Good evening, everybody. So I'm really glad that we're having this resolution in front of us. At last meeting, I asked the city administrator to, reach out to county to see if we can get preliminary property assessment numbers. And first of all, thank you. I think I got a response with an Excel spreadsheet with all the information from Antonina the week after that. So that was great to get, but it was almost kind of one of those things that kept me up at night. I would be emailing Antonina at 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning, just, okay, this is, kind of scary, because, and I think, not just scary the room, but, as you start thinking as a council person, you're seeing, industrial, commercial properties going less in value than residential, but then, that has a huge impact, fiscally, where residents now have to close that gap. So I fully support, dialogue around this at a council and in the city, because, it was one of those things that was tough to swallow, why should residents now close this gap? Look at a current revenue without any increase of the tax, so that was kind of my big concern there, because the gap you're looking at is 10% less in the, revenue that, industrial complex is great, but that's like 30% more in a average rent that a person would pay, so like that, those are kind of things that, like, go in my mind, I'm like, okay, like, how can we alleviate this? Because the reassessment itself is already a challenging thing to do because, hasn't, assessments haven't been reevaluated since '83, right? So you have, a huge challenge in front of the council as it is. So, this was, well timed, I think, because we're hoping that this can be something, well, if this is voted in, of course. But if this can be sent to Dover and we get this back in time, it gives council, similar to the matter we just had before us, a flexibility to see, how we can reduce the impact across various different, taxpayers in our city so that, we can have, responsibility shared equally across all of our properties. So I'm curious to hear what other 4 members of the council think about this, but that's just kind of those initial thoughts that, kind of kept me up at night, looking at those initial numbers. So, so excited to, be able to do this, hopefully. I think it's one of those things that, it might be something that legislators are, eager to pass because the situation is a little intricate and, so hopefully we'll see, a little movement, on this. Thanks.
Mr. Jang?
Thank you. Yeah, I agree. This is something that the city needs to do. It is another tool for us. But after seeing the reassessments and seeing that the commercial and industrial property has not been reassessed at the same proportion that the residential property has, I think this is something we need to do just so we don't go backwards in our tax collections for commercial and industrial properties. Thank you.
Other comments? Mr. Zell, Mr. Mataway?
Thank you, for the presentation. Do we know if there are any other cities that are doing this?
Yes, there are. I believe Ellesmere is one. And I forget, one downstate.
I had colleagues in my office take a look. There are 4 or 5 different ones. I did not bring those with me today that have the ability to do this. And I did the interpretation of your charter. It said just an equal proportion and rates mean just an equal proportion of rates. So you would have to change this to change that. Or to make that different.
Can I just ask clarification? You said 4 or 5 have it already or have it sending to Dover this year or?
No, they already have it. Already in their charter.
Thank you.
They charge different rates with very similar language to what you guys had.
Thank you.
But they didn't have the just and equal rates.
I wanted to add one more thing. I mean, this is about the details further down the road, but my thinking about this is, pardon me, that if we're gonna do this, I would suggest or ask that the higher rates apply to the properties in our industrial office park zone and our general commercial zone, but not in our downtown, in our historic commercial zone or our downtown gateways, because those are small businesses. And my motivation is that this should affect mainly the large business. I mean, Amazon warehouse, but this would apply to them.
Amazon's trustee property, right?
I'm not sure.
They are. So some of what your concerns with the trustees and balancing
Well, that's true.
commercial and industrial really hit home here.
True, but Center Point is not all trustee property, and Quinspans and I don't know the name of the office park out on Lucan's Drive, but I don't think any of that.
Yeah.
So it would impact all of those.
Yeah, and I like flexibility. I do have some concerns, most notably what you said, the trustees, commercial properties, long leases, et cetera. I wonder if we've had any connectivity with any of the cities that do this, and I wonder, like, are we using like how the county, will we use potentially how the county classifies a property? or how we classify, because I've seen some variants.
Well, that's something we would have to determine in our enabling legislation. My
Okay.
immediate thinking was to go by our zoning. So properties in the industrial office park zone, properties in the general commercial zone, et cetera. And we would also have to look at what surrounding properties charge, because we would not want to price ourselves out of the market. So that's why there's no specific rate specified here. If this is granted, it would merely give us the flexibility.
Yeah, and that dovetails into my next thing. We want to make sure it's not arbitrary and capricious.
Well, no, of course.
And like I said, I like flexibility, but I know we'll have our professionals advising. I would also potentially, I know we're not there yet, but I do need to speak this into the record. And that is an appeals process. Because what could happen is, someone could have a vacant commercial industrial property. And they, what I've talked to commercial real estate people, locally and abroad, and sometimes they're waiting on the right renter. And we could be forcing them to, quote unquote, take any renter over the sake of, I gotta pay this higher tax bill.
I don't come up here very often, but I'm gonna do it on this one. With respect to, there's an assessment, the appeals process would be through the county for your assessment.
Okay.
To determine what that was. You guys would set the rate on those properties, right? So it would be a percentage of the assessment. So there's already an appeals process built in. I'm taking one before the county myself right now because of the assessment. So just wanted to be clear, there's already an appeals process through the county assessment, and your legislative action would just be to set the rate for those classes of property.
Would you foresee potentially if a property owner had a question, or would they potentially go before the Board of Adjustment?
Yeah, they'll go to Newcastle County.
Okay.
What is, Joe, maybe the Board of Assessment, or tax.
Is Board of Assessment review.
Okay, now, look, I just want
But
to.
again, that's just for the assessment side. There's no appeal once we set the tax rate.
Right.
What the tax rate is what it is.
Thank you, Joe. That's what I was trying to get at. Once there's a tax rate, that's the tax rate.
Yeah, the appeal is on the assessed value.
But there could be scenario to President Souter's point, if we set it to our zoning, then appeals could come for somebody to appeal to change their zoning from one to the other.
That would be a zoning.
I understand, I'm just saying, is there appeal in that sense potentially coming to it? That's for some.
That would be an appeal, that would be a legislative.
Unless we go with counties to that.
They would have to request an appeal, request a zoning change, and that would go through our Board of Adjustment.
Okay,
As
that
well
would go,
And the Planning Commission and this council.
just to be clear, the zoning change would go to the planning commission and come to council for a vote. It would not, the zoning change would not go before the board.
Oh, sorry, Hubert, sorry.
Yeah, the last comment is that, like I said, I like flexibility. I think this potentially dovetails well into the gross rental tax across the country, and in markets, emerging markets, we're seeing where industrial, commercial are transitioning to residential, i.e. Reach Riverside, i.e. Lucas Drive, i.e. the Navy Yard, Philadelphia. So I like flexibility. I just have some questions, but thank you.
Madam President, I'll make a motion, we approve resolution 25-25.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Thank you. Okay, we do have one more item.
I'm sorry, did a roll call vote?
Well, it's not required for a resolution, but
We just did it for the other
Yeah.
part, James, I think we ought to do it.
Okay, go for it. Then would you call the roll, please?
Council President Souter,
Yes.
Councilperson Day,
Yes.
Councilperson Zell,
Yes.
Councilperson Mataway,
Yes.
Councilperson Zubaka.
Yes.
The resolution is approved.
President Sauter, if I may, I just wanted to
Sure.
note that I'll work with, both you and Councilman Mataway to work with our elected, officials at the state level to bring this before the
The
legislature.
two items, yes. Okay, thank you. All right, the final item of business tonight is a first reading of an ordinance proposed by Mr. Mataway and Mr. Zabaka. I'm going to ask them to read it. It's a bit long, so they may be dividing it up between themselves.
All right. Hi, everybody. Hope everybody's in for a doozy. So before I start, I'll just, briefly talk about, what inspired, this, sponsorship of the ordinance with, Councilperson Mataway. So,
If I had.
Yes.
Much more appropriate for the second reading. The first reading, we've had a tradition. I'd like to stick to it that we read it or bring it up to a public hearing.
Can everybody hear me from here?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Ordinance number 2025-553. An ordinance to amend the City of Newcastle Municipal Code by establishing a new chapter 222 specific financial accounts regarding creation of a budget stabilization fund and a capital and infrastructure fund. Whereas the Council of the City of Newcastle, City Council, possesses the authority to adopt, amend, modify, or repeal the City of Newcastle Municipal Code, City Code. And whereas the City of Newcastle recognizes the importance of responsible financial planning and ensuring long-term fiscal stability. And whereas unforeseen economic downturns, emergencies, and revenue shortfalls can negatively impact the city's ability to provide essential services. And whereas the City Council believes that establishing two financial accounts for specific matters, a budget stabilization fund and a capital infrastructure fund, will help ensure that dedicated resources are available for the city's future needs. And whereas the creation of a budget stabilization fund will provide a reserve to mitigate revenue volatility and support the continuity of municipal operations during periods of financial distress. And whereas the City of Newcastle acknowledges the need for ongoing investment in capital assets, infrastructure maintenance, and improvements to sustain economic growth and public welfare. And whereas the Capital and Infrastructure Fund will ensure dedicated resources for maintaining and replacing the city's infrastructure, including roads, public buildings, parks, utilities, and other capital projects. And whereas prudent fiscal management requires that such funds be established with clear guidelines for deposits, withdrawals, and appropriate use of funds. Now, therefore, making the express finding that the provisions of this ordinance enhance and promote the health, safety, and welfare of the City of Newcastle, be it ordained by the Council of the City of Newcastle as follows. Section 1, the City Code is hereby amended by adding the following new chapter titled Specific Financial Accounts. Chapter 222, Specific Financial Accounts. Article 1, Budget Stabilization Fund. Subsection 222-1, Appropriation to be included in a budget. In preparing the annual budget for the City of Newcastle, the City Council shall include an appropriation for a budget stabilization fund, hereafter BSF, consistent with this article. Subsection 222-2, accumulated balance to be maintained. The total accumulated balance to be maintained in a BSF may not be less than 50% of the city's operating budget for the prior fiscal year, beginning in FY 2029. Please see section 222-3 for FY 2027 and FY 2028 funding. Subsection 222-3, method of funding. The BSF shall be funded as follows. A, beginning in fiscal year 2027, next part is left blank, percent of the property transfer tax revenues will be allocated to the BSF. B, beginning in fiscal year 2028, again left blank, percent of the property transfer tax revenues will be allocated to the BSF. C, beginning in fiscal year 2029, 50% of the property transfer tax revenues will be allocated to the BSF. D, additional funding that may be earned by the reasonable and prudent investment of the BSF in secure investments. Subsection 222-4, expending of funds. A, use during natural disaster or public emergency. 1. Funds accumulated in a BSF may be expended if the city shall be included within a geographical area declared to be a natural disaster by the President of the United States of America or by the Governor of the State of Delaware. 2. Funds accumulated in a BSF may also be expended by the City Council when, in its discretion, it declares a public emergency. And 3. Funds expended from the BSF under this section shall not exceed 100% of the balance contained therein and shall be expended only for those purposes approved by a majority of the members elected to the City Council. E. used during a period of reduced revenues or increased expenditures. One, funds accumulated in the BSF may be expended to fund the city's annual operating budget during a period of reduced revenues, including due to reductions in the transfer tax, building permits, and accrued interest. Two, funds expended from the BSF in any given fiscal year shall not exceed 10% of the city's operating budget. It shall be expended only upon approval by a majority of the members elected to the city council. No accumulated funds shall be expended under this section until the fiscal year 2027 annual operating budget. Three, no more than 25% of an authorized BSF withdrawal in any given fiscal year may be utilized to support personnel costs, including payroll or costs associated with labor contract negotiations, unless approved by an anonymous vote of the members elected to the city council. For purposes of this section, personnel costs include but are not limited to salaries, wages, benefits, bonuses, and financial commitments related to the city's collective bargaining agreements. Four, notwithstanding provisions of this section to the contrary, at any time that the city council may deem necessary and appropriate, the remaining balance may be expended from the BSF by an anonymous vote of members elected to the city council. Subsection 222-5. Great. Replenishing of expended funds. The BSF must be replenished after expenditure under this article by additionally depositing funds appropriated from the annual operating budget equal to 25% of the BSF funds expended commencing the fourth year after their expenditure. Subsection 222-6. Funds to be considered encumbered. A. Funds accumulated in the BSF will not be considered unexpended and unencumbered funds at the end of the budget year. B. Funds accumulated in the BSF will be considered encumbered funds. Councilperson Mattery, would you like to continue? I'm happy to continue.
You're at the top of the page right now.
Article 2.
Article 2, Capital Infrastructure Fund. 222-7, appropriation to be included into the budget. In preparation for the annual budget for the city of Newcastle, the city council will include an appropriation for capital and infrastructure fund, herein also known as CIF. 222-8 definitions. A, capital assets or capital improvements. 1, tangible or intangible assets owned by the city that have a useful life expectancy beyond 1 fiscal year are to be used in municipal operations. 2, includes but is not limited to buildings, land, vehicles, heavy equipment, and major technology systems. B, infrastructure improvements. 1, the fundamental physical systems and facilities necessary for the operation of the city, including roads, bridges, sidewalks, public buildings, parks, and utilities. C, repairs or replacements. 1, the restoration, fixing, or substitution of capital assets or infrastructure components that have deteriorated, become obsolete, or have reached the end of their functional life. 2, includes routine maintenance when part of the larger project, emergency repairs, and planned replacements to ensure operational efficiency and public safety. 3, may also include professional services such as engineering, surveying, and project management necessary for complete repair or replacement. 222-9, accumulated balance to be maintained. A, beginning fiscal year 2027, during the annual budget review, the city administrator will present to the city council a capital and infrastructure improvement plan outlining projected needs for the fiscal year and at least 5 subsequent fiscal years. The plan will identify anticipated projects, estimated costs, funding sources, and timelines. The city administrator must also include provisions for the unanticipated capital and infrastructure repairs deemed urgent or necessary due to safety, regulatory compliance, or significant service disruption. The CIF may be used to support such emergency repairs if approved by a majority vote of the members of the elected to city council. B, the funds to be deposited and maintained in the CIF will be determined each year by the city council when it considers, among other things, the cost estimates, funding sources, and recommended time schedule for each capital projects during the presentation of the proposed capital and infrastructure improvements by the city administrator. C, the total accumulated balance of the CIF will be reviewed by city council both during the mid-year budget review and the annual budget meetings. The cumulative balance must be at least $500,000 with an allowance of 2% buffer due to market fluctuations. 222-10 method of funding. CIF will be funded as follows. A, beginning fiscal year 2027, blank percentage of the property transfer tax revenues will be allocated to the CIF. Beginning fiscal year 2028, blank percentage of the property transfer tax revenues will be allocated to the CIF. Beginning fiscal year 2029, 50% of the property transfer tax revenues will be allocated to the CIF. Additional appropriations for the annual operating budget will be allocated to the CIF if necessary to maintain the required minimum balance. Additional funding may be earned by the reasonable and prudent investment of the CIF in secure investments. 222-11, expending of funds. Funds accumulated in the CIF may only be expended for the repair, replacement, or improvement of capital assets and infrastructure when costs exceed $2,500 and when approved by majority members of the elected to the city council. Eligible repair, replacement, or improvement expenses may include engineering fees, design costs, and other necessary professional services. 222-12, funding to be considered encumbered. A, funds accumulated in the CIF will not be considered unexpected and unencumbered funds at the end of the budget year. B, funds accumulated in the CIF will be considered encumbered funds. Section 2, an initial deposit into the budget stabilization fund created pursuant to the ordinance in the amount of 50% of the approved operating budget for fiscal year 2026, which will be included in the annual operating budget for fiscal year 2026 and to be allocated from the city's money market retention appropriation. Section 3, an initial deposit into the capital infrastructure fund created pursuant to this ordinance of $500,000 must be included in the annual operating budget for fiscal year 2026 to be allocated from the city's money market retention appropriation. Section 4, if any section, subsection, sentence, clause, or phrase of this ordinance is for any reason held to be unconstitutional or invalid, such decisions shall not affect the validity of the remaining portions of this ordinance. Section 5, in the event that any existing ordinance or parts of ordinances are in conflict herewith, the provisions of this ordinance shall control. Section 6, the ordinance shall become effective immediately upon its adoption and approval. First reading. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, well, as Mr. Walton said, our tradition here is the first reading is simply that. This ordinance will be scheduled for a public hearing and second reading and discussion at future meetings. And I think that's it. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
A second?
Second.
Meeting adjourned. All in favor?
Aye.